You and you'll be strong manpowers will be back.
Okay, the time is 5 o'clock. I'll call the meeting to order. This is the Environmental Services Committee meeting for Thursday, June 5th, 2025. Just as a reminder that the meeting will be live streamed and recorded for public viewing on the town's YouTube page. I'll remind the committee to declare a pecuniary interest if one arises at that time. We have nothing under delegation, so I'll move to item 4. I have a motion moved by Jeff DeVlute, seconded by Paul Rapel, that the minutes be adopted by the Plympton-Wyoming Environmental Services Committee. Those confidential minutes of the closed sessions of the committee remain confidential and restricted from public disclosure in accordance with the exemptions provided in the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. And that is the Environmental Services Committee meeting minutes from May 1st, 2025. Are there any questions from the committee on those minutes? I'm seeing nothing. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. We have nothing arising from previous meetings, so I'll go to item 6.1. I have a motion moved by Committee Member Rapel, seconded by Committee Member DeVlute, that the accounts as listed be received by the Plympton-Wyoming Environmental Services Committee. Is the water list as of April 2025, the sewer list as of April 2025, and the environmental list as of 2025, April 2025. Was there any questions for staff on that from the committee? Being on my right. Mayor Atkinson.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. Just a question. Do we utilize blue water power all the time for hydrovac? It's
Through the chair, we do use them quite a bit. They're one of the more reasonable contractors for hydrovac services.
all right. Thank you.
Questions over there? Councilor Lowe? No further questions on that. I will call for the vote. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. We want to staff reports. We have a few staff reports tonight. I have a motion moved by Committee Member DeVlute, seconded by Committee Member Rapel, that the report by Christopher Toulouse, Jacobs lead operator, dated May 23rd, 2025, regarding the Plympton-Wyoming pump station design and commissioning standards be discussed in session of Environmental Services or Council, and that the town endorses Jacobs work with Xylem, Procon, and engineers to develop a standardized pump station panel for new subdivisions and pump station reworks. Christopher's here. Anything to add? Or?
I'll just open it up for questions.
Perfect. We'll turn it over to the committee. Councilor Willett.
I guess the only question I would have, why would they commission it not without the presence of Jacobs or ourselves?
So through the chair, as far as I understand, they are given a list and they're told that we should be there. But I'm not sure if it's actually part of the subdivision agreement. So it kind of opens up the potential for us not to be there. They just assume that some representative should be there, but ideally Jacob should be present during these commissioning activities just to make sure that everything is operating as intended. Be something that we would have to look at as far as adding that into the subdivision agreement if that's not in there currently, but
Yeah, through the chair, this subdivision agreement is about 4 or 5 years old at this point, but I would imagine that this would have come up during the pre-construction meeting for that project, and that either there was a miscommunication or that requirement was just ignored. It does happen from time to time. When you're dealing with a consultant, an engineering consultant who's dealing with a contractor, who's dealing with a supplier, sometimes those kind of things can get missed.
Well, I would just follow up by that, saying that it would make perfect sense to make sure that it is in the agreement, to make sure that we're going to assume it all, that we should be involved in the commissioning or at least the final checkout of the system. I mean, that in industry, which I worked in, is standard practice that we, the owners, the buyers, are involved in it in the end. Otherwise, this is what you end up with. maybe some of these faults could have been identified in advance. So I don't know if it could have or not, but it should be written in the subdivision agreement, especially on your sewage and stuff. I mean, that's pretty important stuff.
Yeah, if I could just make a comment, I absolutely, and I think, I thank Chris for writing this report because it's super important for us to have a standardized approach when it comes to this, when it comes to the panels, or else every time you're building a new pump station, there's going to be something that's just a little bit different than the one before, and that's not good. So we need a standard approach across the board, and that's what we're going to seek to do.
Including, if I may say, the equipment itself. Like, that's even more important that they're not putting in some offshore item that doesn't meet the standards of what you guys are dealing with at every pump station. So yeah, I think it's probably pretty important to get that in there. And I've not seen it. I've seen a lot of subdivision agreements in my time here, but I've really not seen it talked about this type of a deal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Adding on to what Councillor Wolvett says, this company that you're talking about here with the three fancy names, you've used them. We're familiar with that company, right? We've utilized their skill, their talents, and their development before. So I think it only makes sense that if that's the one that you guys are more comfortable with, it helps your servicing, it helps everything down the road.
So through the chair, yes, so. The equipment is supplied by Xylem, and Procon is a designated. Panel builder for Xylem, I have worked with them. Multiple times over the last couple of years. Including when we did the main pump station here in town, so they themselves should be. Not familiar and knowledgeable about what I expect. Especially when it comes to commissioning and final design approval, but. For whatever reason, this time they decided. Like Paul said, just either they forgot about it or they told the consultant that, hey, maybe you should set this up with Jacobs. Something along the lines got dropped, but that's kind of why I'm. Proposing to work with them. So that they are very familiar with what they need and want.
I'm good with that.
Mhm.
I think it's a good build that obviously we want to keep the same types of structures and equipment, all locations. I like the idea about fencing around them because I kind of wondered. Seems kind of odd we have all the power stuff sitting there and kids could try to get into them. It makes sense to put fencing around them.
Do we have any standards with the town that we hold developers to currently? Like, are there standards with the Ministry of the Environment for sewage pump stations that we should be incorporating and requiring developers to construct?
Yeah, I can answer that question through the chair. Absolutely. There are requirements through the ministry. We do have an environmental compliance approval, so we have to stick to the guidelines within that. I think what the major thing here with this panel is that it was approved and inspected by the ESA. It just doesn't go far enough for what we want to see in a panel for the guys to stay safe. Like the transfer switch was buried inside the panel. We want to see it on the outside. So it's just some of the smaller little details that we want to really standardize. There's nothing wrong with it in terms of what the Electrical Safety Association is concerned. They passed it, but we still want to take it one step further.
So then that would be town specific guidelines that we would be developing.
Precisely.
And then so I guess because we're this far along, we haven't had that standardized procedure. I'm assuming the costs are borne on us to kind of go and fix it at this point.
There's a couple of things that I think that we can go back on the developer on, but consider like with the transfer switch and stuff like that, I think there's a few things that we're gonna have to take on ourselves for sure.
And then my last question is there any costs above and beyond the agreement or our budget for operations to do this work, or is this something that we can just direct staff without going to council?
We have a line item in the operations budget that we could use, yes.
Okay, perfect. Any questions? I'll call for a vote. All in favor? That's carried. Move on to 7.2. I have a motion moved by Committee Member Rapel, seconded by Committee Member DeVloot, that the report submitted by Paul De Silva, Director of Public Works, dated May 28th, 2025, regarding the pumping station rehabilitation's various locations project be received, and the tender submitted by Anderson Webb Limited in the amount of $120,519 plus HST be endorsed and forwarded to council for approval. Again, we received that report in advance. Were there any questions on that? Nothing on my left.
That comment for tendering that we had 5 bid takers and only 2 people responding.
Yeah, through the chair, unfortunately, due to the specialized nature of the work, that does happen. Last year, we actually only had one.
Yeah.
Burnham was the only one that closed tenders last year. So we're happy to have a second. And looking at their kind of company profile, Anderson Webb's been in the area. They do a lot of industrial work. They're very familiar with this type of stuff. So we feel very confident in their ability.
It's good. Any questions? I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. We're on 7.3. I have a motion moved by committee member DeVlute, seconded by committee member Rapel, that the report by Paul De Silva, Director of Public Works, dated May 28, 2025, regarding the municipal housing infrastructure program, health and safety water stream project recommendations be received, and that the Environmental Services Committee endorses an application to the MHIP SWS to replace existing 100 millimeter asbestos cement water mains within the former village of Wyoming. Any questions about that recommendation and reports? Councilor Rolvet.
Is it just in the village, Wyoming, where these asbestos water lines are? There's nothing Kamlaki area?
Yeah, through the chair, there is other asbestos cement water mains within the whole town of Plympton-Wyoming. However, these are the only ones that are only 4-inch and lack fire flow. So that's the whole health and safety component is the lack of available fire flow, which is why we targeted these ones specifically.
So eventually, does all this asbestos have to be replaced, or is this just mandatory or not?
It's not mandatory. There's nothing wrong with it necessarily, but it's aging. So we're trying to accelerate our effort in replacing it. And then we're targeting the 100 millimeter stuff first, just because of fire flow capability.
So, with all the new subdivisions and stuff going in under this infrastructure program, is there any room there to apply for more? To do more? The funding program?
Yeah, through the chair, when I really sat down and thought about this health and safety water grant and the tight timelines associated, we have 2 years and we want to replace 1,000 meters, so a kilometer worth. It's pretty aggressive. I had originally was thinking about doing it all because I wanted to kind of shoot for the moon, and if we could get it all done, but we can't do 2.7 kilometers worth in 2 years. It's just not possible.
Okay, this is a start anyway.
Yeah, it's a good start.
Okay. You sir?
Anything else on the left?
Nothing. I'm good.
Well, we'll try our luck once again.
Mhm.
Call for the vote. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Go to 7.4. I have a motion moved by Councilor Wolvette, seconded by Mayor Atkinson. The report by Paul De Silva, Director of Public Works, dated May 30th, 2025, regarding Reese's Corners wastewater servicing study proposal recommendation be received, and that the proposal submitted by Jacobs Consulting in the amount of $98,520 plus HST be endorsed and forwarded to council for approval. Chance to look through that as well. Is there any questions from the committee? Seeing nothing on my right. Robert, you got something?
Well, looking at this study, it isn't just the 18 acres out there that we've purchased. I know right now this is a priority to get some sewers run out there. However, I get thinking about this when I was reading this over yesterday. We really need to take a look at what are we going to do north of the village of Wyoming as far as development goes out in that area. Whether we're going to go east or we're going to go west or we're going to go north. And take that into consideration. And just reading this talked about different options on the 18-acre site. But depending which way we expand in the future, which guaranteed we will, it will expand. I mean, the place is growing. I'm wondering, how far is this study gonna take us? East, west, north? You know, we got Kubota out there, that area, we got to the west. Or is it just gonna be just to Reese's Corners for this?
And so through the chair, that's a good question, and I apologize if it wasn't conveyed properly in the report. Our intent is not just to look at the 18 acres. Our intent is to look at the entire Reese's Corners area, including the commercial lands to the north and to the east. So we are gonna look at the entire area in kind of a fulsome approach to try to figure out what the best way is to service. And we're using information from our official plan and stuff for where future development might be in that area. So that would be the intent, is that if we're gonna do it, we might as well do it right so that we can expand in the future.
Yeah, because I did see some options here about on-site treatment, stuff like that. Well, that might be okay for a short term, but in the long term, if we expand, and like I say, I believe we will. I think that's the future, moving that direction. A good time to study it all. So that's good.
Yeah, and if I can make another point, so the on-site treatment is again not focused on the 18 acres. It's actually focused on the whole area. So doing like a small modular treatment plant for the entire area.
For the entire
For the
area.
entire area, they're gonna look at that too. So there's some new technology that's come out in the modular sector where you don't have to build a full-scale treatment plant. You can do something a little bit smaller. So they're gonna review all of that, and as well as review the best way that we can get the sewage to Wyoming so it can be treated centrally here.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Yeah, no, if we had it budgeted, I fully support it, and that is where the commercial is gonna go. We keep saying we want more commercial, and that's gonna be the spot where it's gonna be out of the way in terms of folks who may not want it in their house, so I think it's a no-brainer. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. That's it for staff reports. We have nothing under bylaws, so I'll move to section 9. I have a motion moved by Mayor Atkinson, seconded by Councillor Wolvett, that the minutes from the laws meeting be received for April 16th, 2025. Are there any questions about those minutes? That answer. Councillor Wolvett?
Where's the water tower discussion of those laws? Any more discussion, or is it kind of our water tower?
I believe Mr. De Silva jumped in here, but I believe it's still ongoing, is it not?
Through the chair, it is still part of their master plan. Plaza is currently undertaking a brand new master plan study. They just recently started it. So we'll see exactly where it falls into the 1 to 10 year time frame, but that's where it was before, like within that 1 to 10 years.
Okay, there was some resistance, was there not? About taking over that water tower?
From.
Nah, I'm not gonna get into that.
Okay,
I just wondered if it was ongoing and.
it certainly is. Yeah, it's still the plan,
Okay.
and we're looking forward to getting it done too.
Okay. Thank you.
I guess just a quick question, Mr. Silva. Is the whole incorporation thing dead in the water now?
That might be a better question for the mayor.
We're still working towards that. We've had some discussion points with one of our municipalities that's we're trying to work through at the moment. So it's still on the table.
Okay, so there's still a pulse.
We're very optimistic we're gonna get it, but we have to work to reach that level.
All right, perfect. Thank you. So we'll receive those minutes. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We have one piece of correspondence action required. And it's a letter regarding sewer consumption charges. I have a motion moved by Councillor Wolvett, seconded by Mayor Atkinson. That the Environmental Services Committee waives the sewer consumption charge of $1,697.54 for June 15th, 2025 water and sewer bill for 5168 Lakeshore Road. And again, from my understanding, we always bring them forward as a motion like this, and then the committee would then discuss it, but it has to be in a positive presentation. Do you want to add anything to that first? We're open for questions.
Sure, through the chair. In my tenure here, this has not been brought, like these kind of requests. This is the first one I've dealt with. So I did talk to the CAO regarding kind of the committee's position in the past. And my understanding is that these type of requests are not typically granted by the committee. But again, it's up to the committee whether they want to.
So you're right, Paul. Normally they're not considered, but we can give them longer to pay and we can defer penalty on it for a couple of months or so. We have done that in the past, but we have never given the amount of consumption back.
Thank you both. So there's some background information for some better understanding of options. Is there any questions, Councilor Webb?
Well, here's my comment on this one. On this committee for quite a while, and yes, we normally don't supply relief, but normally it's water. Normally it's water, not sewage. This is different. In my mind, this is a little bit different in the fact that they're asking for the sewage charge to be refunded, not the water. So, because it didn't go through the system, it didn't go through the sewage system at all. So, because the sewage consumption is based on your water, right? But since this didn't go through to the sewage system, didn't leak into the sewage system, I believe this is a little bit different. I'm trying to think back whether we've given relief on sewage. I'm just not sure we've dealt with too much sewage. Normally water leaks. And that's when people ask, we're gonna get these great big water bills. Then we say, no, that's your problem. Toilets leak and no water, stuff like that. So I don't know if we should go back and take a look and see if we actually have give relief on sewage or not. Talking sewage, not water.
Well, Mr. Chair, for you to Mr. De Silva or Treasurer Hitt, these people applied before. They said they're on their third water leak. Have they ever applied to us before for anything that we're aware of? Or Miss King, sorry.
No, they have not. This is the first time.
And through the chair, if it helps, they did provide some additional information, the fact that they did fix this water service completely from the meter pit out the road all the way to the house. They provided photo evidence and stuff of it.
I don't think they're the original owners of the property either, I think. Serves me correct.
Is there anything to add about the history that Councilor Webb was talking about? Do you have anything to add, any information on the history of previous?
I've been here a long time. We've never given back singing water.
Have we ever had any requests on sewage? I'm not talking water, talking the sewage part.
I guess I think of a specific spot. You don't remember giving back any either.
I know every request that's come to the committee since I started in 2016 has not been approved.
Water or sewage?
Like any request for relief.
Sewage as well.
Before 2016, I can't speak to.
Did you have something?
Yeah, so talking to Adam, he said sewage as well has always been there.
Anything on the right for now?
I think the town went to the user pay and the sewer's tied to the water. I know there's lots of people, including myself, have sprinkler systems and we now still pay sewer charge. Unfortunately, it's the bylaw that the town wanted, so I think we got to stick with that.
Fair enough. Before we vote, do we want to discuss any of their options that Nora brought up? In terms of letting them pay later or have more time to pay, or do we want to just vote on the motion as is?
Personally, I don't want to change what our policies have been. If we haven't been given relief, then we shouldn't give relief. But in fact, if we've give some kind of penalty relief or then
I think we haven't. I know that we haven't charged them penalty and we've given them, a couple more months or whatever they need to pay. I can not give them a year, but I mean,
Extra 60 days type this.
60 days is usually what we get them.
so that would be consistent what we've done in the past.
Yes.
Would
Yes.
can agree with something like that for now. See,
Should we vote on this first, then bring a new motion?
Or it could just be turned down because it's in the positive, I suppose.
And then bring another one. Yeah. Okay, so we'll deal with this first motion first, which is complete relief. I will call for the vote. All in favor? Post. That was defeated. Does anyone want to bring forward for discussion or for vote, one of the other options that was suggested.
I'd make a motion that we give them the following our already established protocol for 60 days to be able to extend the payment period. Work with our treasury department or with the for that.
Moved by Mayor Atkinson, the seconder. Okay, any further discussion on that or are we ready to? Happy with that? Motion be written. We got the motion.
I don't have a blank motion. I don't know.
We could write it after the fact.
So I believe the motion is to work with the treasurer to provide 60-day relief with no penalty.
And the administrative assistant to lay out the options for them as far as extending the payment period.
Everyone's okay with that motion? Understands?
Oh, yeah.
Good thing they're recorded. All in favor? That's good. Thank you. Motion for 10%. Move on to item 11. We have 11.1. A motion moved by Mayor Atkinson, seconded by Councillor Wolvette, that the correspondence related to recommended reading and routine approval and information items not otherwise addressed by resolution be noted as received by the Plympton-Wyoming Environmental Services Committee and filed accordingly. That is the stormwater management facility warning signs and Jacob's monthly operating report. Were there any questions about either of those two items? Turn on my right, nothing. Anything on my left? The only question I had was for Jacobs, for the non-compliance that we had. Was that caught quickly, so there was no major implications that had any ministries concerned or anything?
So through the chair, it was an ongoing issue for on and off for a couple weeks with those elevated levels. But the ministry was okay with our response to that overage. I have rebuilt those pumps and I've also brought in another spare. That in the event that those ones do fail, I have one on site and ready to go. So to hopefully avoid any future issues.
Thank you. There's no further questions. I'll call for vote. All in favor? That's carried. Is there any new business related to environmental services? I'll start with the committee. Anything on my left?
Mr. Chair.
No, sir.
For me.
So the finance department and our executive assistants are working on getting e-billing set up into the water and water wafers and taxes. And so that we hope by the first of the year, we can have that set up. And if people want to give us their email, we'll be able to e-bill their bills to their email.
E-bill.
Would be great, especially if there's postal disruptions. Thank you, that's good.
That never happened.
Anything from our Jacobs?
If we could have the fire department notify us when they're using hydrants a little more promptly. The last call I got was 3 weeks ago, I think, and he kind of gave me a list of hydrants that they had used within the last month. Communicated to us sooner rather than later, just so that we can pump those out.
Rather than proactive or after the fact, or either?
Even if it's the day after. My fear is when that water sits in those hydrant barrels, you start to corrode the inside of the barrels and the components, which we can avoid any more maintenance on hydrant. I would love to do that.
I will leave that with Mr. Silva.
Absolutely.
You could also leave it with the chair of the fire department, fire executive.
And we got a meeting coming up Monday night, so we will bring it up.
All right, Paul, you're off the hook. Perfect. Now,
We will bring it up. I might talk to the chief
I'd only say something just because, I mean, we're all on Facebook. I see that they post. Hey, we've been out, doing exercising, and I'm like, okay, where's my call? I mean, we do have a posting up at the fire department, stating to call Jacobs after a hydrant has been used, obviously primarily in the winter time because we are afraid of freezing. Like I said, if I can reduce the amount of maintenance that I have to perform on hydrants, if I could.
For that as well. So I'll leave that with Council.
We got it.
Paul. All right. The only thing I had was just to thank our staff and Jacob staff again for all these applications for grants they're putting in and hold their breath. Hope we'll get one of these. I will move to 13. Motion moved by Council Wolvette, by Mayor Atkinson, that the Plympton-Wyoming Environmental Services Committee regular meeting be adjourned until the next regular meeting to be held August 7th, 2025 at 5 p.m. So we have July off. All in favor?